Yes, number 74, Abuelo and the Nieto talking Miami sports. We talk Canes, we talk Dolphins, of course, Miami Heat, Marlins, Panthers, you name it. And we're going to be talking about the Canes. Are they strong all over? They have some weakness as you look at 2026. The Dolphins, what should they do in the draft? Also through free agency. The Marlins are starting the preseason, basically spring training, and the Giannis situation. The fact that the Heat was not able to obtain Giannis, they did not make a trade. Everyone in the Eastern Conference made a trade. So what we can expect for the rest of the season? Abuelo Andeniento is presented by Balado Tires, two locations in Miami to serve you better if you're looking for tires. Tyler, Balado Tires.
That's
Here we
right.
go.
Every
We're
yeah,
starting Abuelo Andeniento.
yeah, every episode we like to dedicate to a player who had the corresponding number. Right now we're in the 70s, so it's been a lot of big boys, a lot of offensive linemen, defensive linemen. We're keeping that up right now. Number 74. This time it's a UM offensive lineman. Who do we got?
Yes, a guy that played in the 60s, Tyler. The 60s, that's when you
Hmm.
were born. In the 60s.
Yeah.
No, of course not. Much later. But this guy, Dan Connors, UM offensive lineman, that's the way he started. Played center, he played tackle. And then he went to the defense when he was finishing at UM and ended up playing linebacker for the Raiders. He was an AFL All Star, and he played 11 years with the Raiders. Dan Connors.
Well, you mentioned, a lot of NBA teams made trades. I'd say none of them were blockbusters, probably outside of the Anthony Davis trade. But the Heat were just not active at the deadline. There was rumors of Giannis being an option. He seemed to be open to it, considering that. But ultimately, he is staying with the Bucks, not moving anywhere. And just wondering what you thought about that. The Heat kind of deciding to just stick with their cards through the rest of the season. Who knows? Maybe they'll make a move in the offseason. But for now, stay and put.
Yes, the trade was not, they were not able to make the trade because I think that Milwaukee was not really ready to make the trade. There are rumors, only rumors, that Miami basically offered everybody except for Adebayo. So I guess everyone was available of what they had. I would be surprised if Powell was in that group, but those are the rumors. And I think they're going to try hard in the offseason. I think he's going to be traded in the offseason, but there's going to be competition. Depending on what the Knicks do this year, they think that they have enough, but maybe they don't have enough. And if they don't, they will be competing for him, but they're looking for a lot of draft choices. The Knicks do not have that many. The same situation with Minnesota. And then Golden State, I think, is the one that could give Miami trouble in trying to make a trade. But Miami may have as many as four first round picks, Tyler, if they make the right moves uh, here through the offseason. So they're going to be in the competition. I'm sure some other teams will be, competing also besides those four teams that we mentioned. But you know, Miami is in a situation now, since they not make a trade, which they're doing what they have done now the last few years, except for that year that they went crazy in the playoff, even though they were like a 7 or 8, and they ended up in the NBA championship at the end of the season. They went through the playoffs, having Butler play at a very high level. But now you're talking about a team that the best, it looks like a number 6. So that
Mhm.
means that you're going to be playing in the first round against the top teams. You're talking about Knicks, Boston, Detroit. So, it doesn't look good. Hopefully, they'll surprise us. But this is a team that has not been willing to basically get rid of some of the players and start from scratch and get maybe a number 3 pick, a number 4 pick. So now free agency is a lot harder in the NBA. There's not that many. free agents. So when you have like a whale, you have to go for it. And that's what Riley does. So that's the way I see it. So this is a team that doesn't like to get rid of players and basically uh, you know say goodbye to a season or say goodbye to 2 seasons in a row. And so this way it makes it harder. I think they count on Spolstra a lot. That Spolstra is going to make it happen. But you know, Spolstra is very good, but he's not a magician. Yeah, so it's hard.
When you look at previous, or not even previous, just the way the state of the NBA right now. When you mention landing these whales, it's not the way it was before. The other good players in the league want to play with these guys. So if you don't have one of these whales, you're ultimately out of the picture a lot of the time. Not just because of them, but because of the fact that the rest of the other top 20 players in the league probably want to play on the same team as these guys. So it's like three or four teams of the best players, and then the other good players on those same teams. It's you can't just get a team of like five good players now. So I agree with you there. I think you ultimately have to try to play the game and land one of those guys if you want to be competitive in the long run. I would say out of the top three or four guys, he's ultimately the least attractive just out of the age aspect. You look at like Gilgis Alexander's, I think 27, 28 years old. Luca's in his late 20s at then. So, I think when it comes to making a trade, I mean, you got to also look at what was Luca moved for? Anthony Davis. That's a top 10 player. What can the Heat offer a franchise changer? So it's tricky. Bilal Tires is
So
a franchise changer.
yeah, yeah. Or you would need the Marlins to get involved in the NBA, and the Marlins, they have made some trades that have made history, and we're going to mention something about that later on in the podcast. But Balado Tires, Tyler, yes, 63 years established in the market. That's a long time. They have two locations: Northwest 27th Avenue and 16th Street, and also Southwest 8th Street and 67th Avenue. They're very competitive with their prices. This is a family business, and they also offer brake services. So if you're looking for tires here in South Florida, Balado Tires is the place. But what else do we have in the podcast? By the way, follow us: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. Abuelo and the Nieto. What do we have?
Right now, I guess just looking ahead at this NFL draft, you see these guys are going to start preparing for workouts. Combine will approach in a couple of months, and the Dolphins are a team with a plethora of needs. You don't really go into the draft thinking we need this position and we'll be fine. I think they need a lot of there's a lot of holes to patch, whether it be through the draft or free agency. And I guess just kind of wondering, what do you think are the first two or three needs that need to be addressed? I think, in my opinion, when it comes to the draft, it also depends on availability for a team like this. You can't pass up an undeniable player. You're not in the position to do so. So I think just handcuffing yourself to a certain position based on your round really isn't the way to go.
Yeah, Tyler, they need so much that you get the best that is available,
Yeah.
basically, because probably there's going to be edge rushers, there's going to be receivers, there's going to be corners, there's going to be safeties available. Even an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, because they want to remember they want to grow from inside out. So that is also a possibility. But right now it looks like receiver, edge, uh, safety. Those are some of the positions. Tight end. Let's not forget tight end and quarterback. There's got to be a quarterback. I would say they shouldn't wait like they have done in the past, number 6 or 7th round. If they got somebody in the fourth, as soon as the third round, that is really they like a lot, you have to consider bringing them in, Tyler, because you got yours, and that's basically it. Because Tua, most likely, is they're going to move him, and they're going to try to make a trade because that's what makes sense. You know, they'll, it's going to be cheaper for them. They're going to be able to probably, the other team probably is going to take up a little bit of his contract. So it makes sense monetarily, and it makes sense as far not keeping a player that maybe you think that doesn't really have a future with you, and maybe that can create some problems in the locker room. So I look for Tua to be moved, and then they can pick almost anything. I think that maybe the biggest need is receiver and tight end, and maybe an edge rusher, especially if Chubb is not around. But we have not mentioned safety. But all of a sudden, Fitzpatrick is moved on a trade. And I think one of those two is going to be moved, Chubb or Fitzpatrick, because they need draft choices. And of course, there is Hill. Hill is also going, and then you can get a pick for that. So they're going to try to get as many picks as possible, Tyler, and accumulate picks, and hopefully those guys work out. And in free agency, I don't see them being that aggressive because they don't have the money to spend on the free agents.
Yeah, I think that well, you mentioned the quarterback situation, or wanting to pick a quarterback. I think even fourth round is too late. I think if you're going to address the position, address it earlier. Don't address it at all. In that instance, I mean, you just looking at the quarterbacks that are available. Obviously, it's Mendoza, and then you get to the gap. It's Ty
There's not
Simpson.
much. There's
It's
not
well,
much.
it's one guy who's Mendoza will be number one, and then it's Simpson and Chambliss, and then you got Nussmeier and Beck, who I don't aren't going to be NFL quarterbacks. So you have Simpson, who's projected to be a late first round, second round pick, and then Chambliss, who's projected to be a second or third round pick. If you're going to get a quarterback, I would get one of those guys because at least they'd have the chance to compete. If you can get Ty Simpson in the second round, maybe move back in the first round, or Trinidad Chambliss, then I understand that. But I also don't think that for a team like this that needs so many players to just waste a pick on a fourth round quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller from Penn State, that guy's never going to play a snap for your football team. And if they do, that means your team's really bad. So I wouldn't go down that route. But I do think it wouldn't hurt. I do think both Chambliss and Simpson have kind of shown, some interesting traits, some flashes that indicate that they might be able to lead a franchise. We've seen that, now in the NFL, a past couple of quarterbacks have been on college teams that weren't necessarily great, and they've gone on to be good in the NFL, like Jackson Dart. In the previous year, there was Jaden Daniels at LSU, and LSU wasn't even that great that year. So we've seen it happen, and I wouldn't pass up that chance.
Yeah, well, Chambliss is somebody to consider, even though he's small. But he is very quick, and he gives you an opportunity. Definitely offensively, he could be a very good player at the NFL level. He's definitely very talented. So yeah, if he's available in the second round, Tyler, I agree with you. Somebody like that, you consider it, uh, but it depends what they think. We don't know exactly how they see these players. So, but if they see him as a starter, yeah, they should consider him. And the thing is he going to be available in the middle of the second round? There's not that many quarterbacks available, so maybe he gets picked earlier than he's supposed to. That's a lot of when there's not that many available. Usually, that's what happens. But we gotta talk Canes, Tyler. The Canes are always finding a way into our podcast, right?
Yes, they are. Well, obviously, I mean, this team, Mario Cristobal specifically, does a lot of damage in the portal. The big move was, Darren Mensah getting that quarterback from Duke, who was the best quarterback in the ACC last year. Great touchdown to interception ratio. Got, probably his favorite receiver and, Cooper Barquette over there. And then I also looked at, offensive line. I think that's a unit where maybe losing a couple of guys, they upgraded. They got Jonathan Klein, a guy from East Tennessee State, which I like that you kind of get a small diamond in the rough type player, but he was rated really high in the transfer portal. So that means that he must have played really well there, probably graded really high on Pro Football Focus. So I think this team has kind of made their prerogative very clear how they're going to address rebuilding their team. If they recruit some freshmen and they wind up being great players, that's fine, but they're not going to count on them to be what their team or what pushes their team forward. They want experienced guys, whether it be from a small school, from another school that's coming over, giving them another chance. They made that clear.
Yeah, and they went after guys that they needed, key positions. Tyler, they got the guy Wilson. Remember the edge, and they need help at edge rushers because they lost two guys that might be first rounders. So they went for those positions. Then they went from offensive line. They got a couple of offensive linemen, and I think there's still a little question at the linebacker position. They got maybe I'm pronouncing it right, Taure, the number one. Where's number one? And of course Smith is staying, and there was. They were saying that maybe he couldn't stay, but yes, he can stay. So that number 41, Chase Smith, played at a pretty high level for the team. He's very good in coverage, a very good tackler. So they got two big guys there, but they don't have that much depth. They have talented players, sitting there as number twos, but they don't have that experience. So you got to see if there's an injury or whatever. You worry a little bit about the linebacker position. But they have, besides Wilson, they got Thornton Tyler, the corner from Boston College. He should help a lot. And they're losing Scott.
Yeah.
And, the great blitzer. And this guy, Scott Tyler, he might be a second rounder. He played at a very high level for the Kings. So you got to see, defensive line, are they going to be close to what they were last season? Because it's going to be difficult to be the same or better. And then offensive line, I think is also a little bit of a question. Are these guys that they're getting, are they going to be close to what they were last season? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But then offensively, you look at receivers, Tyler, and they're a beast, a receiver. They're very strong a receiver, and of course at quarterback and at running back. So if those offensive linemen can do the job, this offense should be better than last season because they're better, a little better, definitely at the skill positions. And from your perspective, definitely right at quarterback, they're better at quarterback, right?
Yes, much better at quarterback. I 100%. I agree with you on that one. Moving on, we're talking tires.
Yes, yes. But before that, Tyler, we got to talk about Balado Tires. Balado Tires, 63 years established here in Miami, very long time. You're looking for brake service besides tires, they have brake service. They have very competitive prices on their tires, and they're in two locations: Northwest 27th Avenue and 16th Street, and also Southwest 8th Street and 67th Avenue. For tires, always the name is Balado Tires. And you were saying,
I actually was. I think you misunderstood me because I was leading into tires.
oh, I thought I heard like Marlins or something, but I
No,
don't hear that well.
no, but we can talk Marlins. That was going to be our next topic, and World Baseball Classic. I guess coinciding with the beginning of the season coming up, Marlins have a couple guys participating. Spring training approaching. I think you're a little bit more plugged in with this situation. So just wondering your outlook on this upcoming season.
Yes, well, they start spring training now around the corner, Tyler. This is next Wednesday. They start in Jupiter. You're talking pitchers and catchers. You know how it is at the beginning. Then the rest of the players come in, and this is a team that is young, but they did pretty well last season. Over almost the expectations were a team that couldn't win maybe 50 games, and they did a lot better than that. So they have a shot at the wild card because they were like a few games out of the wild card. at the beginning of September. So I think they have a shot. They need the pitching to to come up big because that's the strength of the team, and you need especially those two top guys to stay healthy. We're talking Alcantara and Eury Perez, but they have a lot of youngsters. This kid White, the starter that was did great in the minors last season. He's one of the top uh, prospects in baseball. And they have a couple of other pitchers behind him. Snelling is another lefty, very talented. And then they have the rest of the starters. In the as far as the rotation is concerned, which are also very talented. So I think the pitching is the one that can carry them, and a lot of talented young players. Ramirez and some of the other guys that have done very well. So I expect the team to be in the competition this season. They start the season, by the way, March 27th versus the Rockies, and they also have a few players, which I think is positive, Tyler. 9 players in the World Baseball Classic, including Alcantara and Agustin Ramirez, that are going to be playing for the Dominican. And then they have this Cuban player, Chape, that is going to be playing for Cuba. But a total of 9 players. They even have players on the Canadian team. So uh, I think it's a good competition for some of those young players, to participate. But Tyler, we have something else coming up now that you always feature in the show, and looking at some of our former stars, young guys coming up, right, in Miami.
Yes, well, this is a little bit of a different version of the segment because we're actually not going to look at. We're going to take a look at an older one. You kind of have done this before. I didn't really know that much about this guy until I started doing my project, the kind of the baseball story that I've been doing. But talking about Orestes Destrade, he played for Columbus High School, and then he went on to play for the Yankees for a few years. Went to play overseas in Japan, and then played for the Florida Marlins. Opening day, he was on that team, and then went on to have a career in Boston. I mean, a career in broadcasting. Still working in broadcasting. He's also Randy Johnson's first career strikeout, which I found to be pretty interesting. But grew up playing baseball at Tamiami Park, and it was a high draft pick, and was a star at Columbus High School before going on to be a Cuban American player, but was one of the guys kind of like Canseco in that era who didn't defect, came as a young man, and was able to still kind of represent the culture early on before a lot of guys came over and started to play.
Yeah, great guy, Estrada. I know Estrada well. I know his family, and I got the opportunity of covering him while he was here with the Marlins. And another guy that was in Copa Dorada Sports Awards, Tyler. You feel proud after you do that for many years, like we did. Some of the guys that got recognized through that event here in South Florida, recognizing Hispanic athletes, little league, youth leagues, college, and professionals, and he was one of those guys. A great guy, first baseman Orestes Destrade. But Tyler, don't forget Balado Tires. Balado Tires, 2 locations in Miami to serve you better. Northwest 27th Avenue and 16th Street, Southwest 8th Street and 67th Avenue. A great family. Now is run by Mr. Orlando Hidalgo and his son. Yes, the junior Hidalgo. If you're looking for tires, Balado Tires. But now is the opportunity that you have to look good and for me to look bad, right? In this
Yes, that's
podcast.
right. Would you do you want to make me look? What about you make me look good first, and then I'll do my best to make you look good after that.
Okay, so I'll start. This one is not gonna be well. It is not that difficult, but I'm not sure because this is not maybe your strength. So that is the question here, Tyler. Who holds the highest batting average in a career with the Marlins? Who holds the highest batting average in a career with the Marlins? So you think of the really, really top guys that the Marlins have had. See,
Um,
I'm helping you. This might be, the best hitter that the Marlins ever had. And he started very young with the Marlins, and then here he did very well, and then he took off.
um, Christian Yelich.
No, no, even bigger than Christian Yelich, Tyler. Yeah.
That's easy. Nah, man, I'm the first on the podcast.
Well, I
Um,
help you and I help you,
yeah, you
Tyler.
helped me
So
too much. No, it doesn't count. I got it wrong. But the answer is probably Miguel Cabrera.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I was gonna
Miguel
say,
Cabrera, Tyler, he hit for an average 313 playing for the Marlins from 2003 when they won the title, and then to 2007, 313. But Tyler, I was telling you that the Marlin trades, right? The Marlin trades. So they get rid of him in a trade. They get six players back, and the best player that they got back was Andrew Miller, which in 3 or 4 seasons with the Marlins had a losing record and a pretty bad losing record. So they have Maven. Maven was in that trade also. But six players back for a Hall of Famer.
that's right.
That was tough. So what do you have for me?
The issue with those, I never even got to see him play in a Marlins jersey. So I grew up seeing, him dominating the MLB, and everybody, you and my dad telling me like, you remember he used to be a Marlin, or that guy used to play for the Marlins, and I was like, I never even got to see it. But unfortunately, I guess that's kind of the recurring theme with this team. Um, this question is it's kind of a two-parter, not a two-parter question, but I'll do some context after you answer it. Who has the most rushing touchdowns in Miami Hurricanes history career?
Oh, in Miami Hurricanes history in one season or in a career?
Career.
In a career. Uh, can we go back and maybe Chuck Foreman?
Chuck Foreman isn't even in the top 10.
Chuck Foreman is in the top 10.
He's not. He's not.
Johnson?
No.
No.
Johnson
Uh,
is 5.
all right.
This is someone who he's the
McGahee?
only. No, but McGahee is part of. He's number 3, but I'll talk about that. This is a guy
Wow,
up
number
out of
30.
out of everybody on the list. The guy who's number 1 is the only one who doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Wow. So, Tyler, I'm not going to get it, Tyler, for sure. Tell me.
Stephen McGuire.
Oh, yeah.
He played in
Yeah.
the late '80s, early '90s. Um, I'm not sure. Do you remember him?
Yeah. I did see his games. Yeah.
So Stephen McGuire had 35, but interestingly enough, here would try to break this down for you guys. Willis McGahee has 28 in a season. So he has the Miami Hurricanes record with 28 rushing touchdowns in a season, while Stephen McGuire has 35 in a career. And Willis McGahee's 28. Edrin James is below him with 17. So Willis McGahee has 10 more than the person behind him. The problem is that Willis McGahee had that injury, so he only played 2 seasons at Miami. Willis McGahee would easily have had that career record because 28 in a season, he only finished with 31 in his career. So just kind of showing how dominant he was, before that debilitating injury, but still went on to have a pretty successful NFL career.
Tyler, we have done it again. Number 74, Abuelo and the Nieto. We're in TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Follow Abuelo and the Nieto. Arrivederci. Hasta luego.